Hello everybody and welcome back to another day of LPL English. We have just 3 more days of the regular season until the playoffs kick off, and still a lot to be determined in terms of seeding and even where teams are headed going into the play-in stage. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Trouble for the first of 2 best of 3s for the day. We're starting things off with Fun Plus Phoenix taking on Invictus Gaming, and then it is one of the most hyped up matches of the entire split. Top Esports up against Billy Gaming. A ton of stakes, a ton of opportunity for teams to rise up in the standings, Trouble. And we're starting right here with FPX versus IG. It was a very fun series the last time around.
Oh, absolutely. You know, actually rewatching the series when they first played together, it was like back at the very beginning of the split, actually, for both of these teams. I felt like FPX came into the season, they were like, wow, look how close they are to beating IG. They even take the first game off of that series, and I feel like after that, like, IG just straight up just hands checked them. It was so funny because we're talking about like IG finding their footing throughout the entire split, and right now they're coming through like a 4-series win streak, right? They're really, really strong. But back then they did have cracks, and FPX actually managed to take that first game of that series.
And so we'll see if they can keep it competitive again this time around. But before we dive into this series, let's take a look at the format overall, as we are just a couple of days left until we get to that fated play-in stage, where the bottom 6 teams of Group Ascend will match up with the top 2 teams of Group Nirvana, that being EDG and LGD, in a do-or-die best-of-5. The winners of those best-of-5s will move on to the playoffs to join the top 4 teams of Group Ascend. And we don't know who that 4th team is going to be just yet, Trouble.
I mean, that has been the discussion for a very, very long time. Like, even if you look at the standings, JDG right there taking the 3rd place. They're like 1 point difference from BLG, right? I feel like it's always been the discussion of the first 2 teams from Group Ascent are very obvious, like Top Esports and AL are both the rest. But I feel like from there on down, it has been a complete chaos to try and figure out what that top 3, 4, 5 always looks like. And with teams like FPX, WE, Weibo Gaming literally sitting 1 win away from each other, there's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, FPX don't have an opportunity to make it into top 4, but if they can pick up a couple of wins, or this is their last series here, if they pick up a win over against Weibo, or, you know, against IG here, they could pass Weibo in the standings, jump up to 6th, maybe 7th. That could maybe help them out a little bit in terms of their eventual playoff opponent, especially when you consider the 7th place team will likely play Thunder Talk, and the 6th place team will likely play a team like LGD. So a lot of expectations for them, and if they can win a series, their last one of Group Ascend, could maybe get them a better chance to qualifying into the postseason. But let's get into the rosters that we're going to be starting off with first in this matchup between FPX and Invictus Gaming. Again, 2 organizations that are storied in the LPL. They both won World Championships before, although now in a bit of a different situation. Let's start things off with Fun Plus Phoenix, currently sitting at 6 and 11 in the standings. And a team that had some slow start at the beginning. I think they started off 0-4, but then have, you know, largely kind of come back since then, although they are on a bit of a slide as of late.
I think they're kind of, you kind of pictured a mountain right there. It's like it started low, then it went pretty high, and now we're back on a slump again. And I feel like FPX, with the talent that they do have as well, particularly looking at Assume and Sway, which I feel like has been kind of like the shining bot lane for FPX, I feel like has been a very confusing team for me, because they've got really high highs, but their lows look very confusing. I think we're having a little bit of a discussion as in, hey, why does FPX potentially look like this? And if you look at like majority of the MVPs when FPX does win, come from Sway, their support. This guy is their engage. He is their initiating tool. However, for me particularly, when we're talking about Sway, I'm thinking of NIP last year, and I'm like, this was the most inconsistent player in the entire roster. And still in the FPX, he's still trying to find his footing, and it feels like a little bit of like a leadership issue when it comes to the in-game calls.
Yeah, it's been a lot of ups and downs, as we mentioned. This team beat Anyone's Legend a couple of weeks ago, and then immediately followed it up with a 2-0 loss to Ninja Pajamas, who are 2 teams on the opposite spectrums of the standings, Trouble. And speaking of opposite ends of the schedule, remember, FPX's first series of the entire Group Ascend was against IG. It was a 2-1, as we mentioned, very close, but you know, I feel like both teams are at very different parts of their season at that point. FPX still trying to get off the ground as this kind of inconsistent team that didn't make the playoffs in split number 1, whereas IG maybe were coming in with some higher expectations. And so, you know, from now until here, we've definitely seen FPX and IG actually both make a lot of growth, and it's going to be fun to watch them at such different points of the season at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I have to remind people that the first series, even though it might seem like a mismatch of teams, especially now that IG are on the up and up, I feel like this particular series really lived up to the first one for both these teams. FPX came in and absolutely dismantled IG. It was a constant back and forth, a lot of team fighting. It was a last-minute ace, actually, from FPX around that Dragon area so that they could finish the game and take that first game off of the series from IG.
Yeah, and then IG had to work their way back into the game and work their way back into the series, I should say, after being down 1-0. And we saw the debut of the Nidalee top lane. We saw some cool Lee Sin plays from JJ. So that this was, them, as you mentioned at the top of the show, kind of skill checking FPX a little bit, saying that, hey, if we could just play our champions that we like to play and still end up beating you guys, y'all are not that good just yet.
I feel like this is what's really fun about IG, right? That they can actually default to 2018 and pick out champions that will actually skill check you in lane and in the game in general. And I think it was the same story for game number 3 between these two teams. You've got Renekton, Lilia, Yone. Do they necessarily pair up together superbly? No. Do they make sense for the people that pilot them to want to be able to skill check you in lane and then maybe in a side lane later on? Absolutely. I think they do the work right here. And I feel like particularly when you look at IG also, you look at like their top side, which is pretty legendary. So I guess they take a pass on wanting to skill check their opponents every now and then.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while now, so makes sense to see them try to, still show them that they got it to some extent. But let's take a look at that Invictus Gaming roster just a little bit deeper here, as they are on a very large win streak, as we have said. They were hovering around 500 for a large part of that season, Trouble, but recently have been breaking out, and it seems like all of our superstar teams are starting to pull it together going into the playoffs.
Wow. A superstar team in the LPL doing so well. You know what? These are cursed. These are absolutely cursed. Not just in the LPL, like all over the world. You make a superstar team, they're just bound to fail. But these guys, they're like individually, if you take them in the role, they're some of the best in the LPL and some of the best in the world even for some of them. And there's just so much experience. So many world championship titles within them. But this doesn't matter because they were falling apart in the seams in the earlier stages of the split, but somehow right now they've got it back together. And I feel this ties massively to the part that Mako had to play in this team. I feel like when you've got so many big names that want to see the game a certain way, want to play the game a certain way, I feel like Mako was kind of getting lost in the sauce a little bit in terms of who to play with. Is it like a jungle support scenario? Do I play for rookies? Shall I play the 2 versus 2? And I feel like right now he has found a more stable role on how to play around the IG members.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked a lot better in the last couple of series specifically. I remember that 2-0 against JDG. I thought that Mako had himself a really, really good time. Just making plays across the map, which is what we know Mako as being able to do. Obviously, that assist leader here in the league. But IG now are in a position where they could contend for that top 4 spot. However, it will require a little bit of luck and a little bit of BLG messing up, as IG will be the biggest top esports fans after this series if they're able to win. Essentially, what has to happen is IG need to win both of their series against FPX and BLG, whereas BLG need to lose both of their series against top esports and then IG, obviously. So in order for that matchup at the end of the split to really matter, we need to see BLG lose to top esports, and we need to see IG beat FPX today. If you want maximum chaos going into like the last day of the LPL, that is what you're hoping for over the span of today.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned IG are going to be Top Esports' biggest fans, because guess what? After this series, there's BLG versus Top Esports. Yep. So it's not like they're going to be their biggest fans. There's like a whole mountain to climb for either of those teams that are going into the next series as well. But one step at a time. You know what they say? Having everything in your hands feels a little bit more secure, right? So IG, first of all, need to start with the win over FPX right here, and then they can become fans for Top Esports.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what happens in the BLG series later today if IG don't take care of business against FPX. That is a great point. So maybe focusing on both things at a time is the most important here. As Yeah, we are kind of slating this as a situation where Invictus Gaming are the favorites. Obviously, they won last time around. They're also on a bit of a hot streak. However, I think FPX still have something to prove. Remember, this is their last series of Group Ascend before they head into that play-in stage. And even though they know that they're in a do-or-die best-of-5, you know, winning this series gives them an opportunity to play a potentially weaker opponent or an opponent that is considered to be a little bit less strong. And so they definitely want to win this one too. Even though they're already locked into play-ins, there's no shot of them getting to top 4.
You know, from what I've seen in general throughout the years, when it comes to like playing stages or like lower brackets or making like a deeper run, it feels like the more best-ofs you've got on your back, it feels like the team gels better together. And again, we talked a little bit about how FPX is just very confusing to me in terms of how they want to play the game, their execution, their shot calling, leadership, question mark in game. And it feels like maybe when they get through that playing stage, when they stop playing, you know, those best of 5s, when they stop playing those big series, things are going to start clicking together. They're going to see throughout the series what really does work for them. Because a lot of their games that they have lost over in a 2-0 basis, there's like, it's kind of like, you know how pro players are like, there's nothing to learn here. There was nothing to learn here. When you do get dismantled start to finish, there's not really much you can learn here. You can learn by making a random mistake in macro and losing a game that was already winnable. But when nothing is working, what can actually work for FPX? And I feel like here is where they're going to have to try and figure it out versus IG.
And, you know, you talk about the concept of learning here. Remember, FPX, a team that didn't make the playoffs, were kind of slated to be towards the bottom of the standings. But because they had some good luck in the placement stages and they played well in that play-in bracket to end up in Group Ascend, well, they've got the chance to play 18 best-of-3s against some of the top teams in the LPL. So they've been getting a lot of practice. They've been getting a lot of learning experience. And remember, at the start of the season, we said the main goal for teams like FPX, for WE, that didn't have a ton of expectations coming into this season is, you know, getting that practice, learning, growing a lot, and hopefully turning that into success once you get to the playoffs. And so we're getting to the end of that. We've seen, of course, some growth from certain players. I think, you know, Awesome has been playing well. Joy's been collecting all those MVPs. But we also have seen situations where the team is kind of faltering, especially as of late. So one good series, even a close series against IG, I think would put some confidence into these players' minds heading into that do-or-die best-of-5.
I feel what's really exciting is what mood IG are going to be in. We mentioned the series when they first played versus each other, right? They lost game 1, and then IG was like, hey, let me guard a few champions that can skill check you straight up because we are better than you. And I feel like IG is one of those teams that has the aura to carry that through, right? To like actually want to skill check their opponents, especially when FPX is like quite struggling right now and IG are on a roll. And I feel like that's what I want to see. Like, IG have been playing fantastic League of Legends for the past few series. They've actually been playing so well gelled together as a team. And I feel like maybe versus FPX, we might get just a little bit more of that spark of like the Lee Sins coming back out, the Auroras, maybe Nidalees over on the top side for Shy.
You say that, but they got to make sure they win this one too. Remember, implications are very high. Even though, you know, the loser of that kind of head-to-head between Billy and IG in terms of who finishes 4th, who finishes 5th, they're playing like EDG in the first round of the play-ins, which most people would expect either of those teams to win. But you don't want to run that risk, right? Of having one best-of-5 potentially end your season. Like, say you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you pick the wrong champion, you like lose the 1v1 or something, and then all of a sudden your season is over. Exactly. Like, if there's teams that you're worried about consistency issues with, like it could be a team like IG. So they want to win this series to make sure they don't have to worry about that, or at least give themselves the opportunity to lock themselves automatically a spot in the top 4, which gets you into the playoffs, which are double elimination at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't worry, our boy Shadow right there is completely locked in, walking in like Batman. He flipped his jacket in the back as well as if it was a cape. So all good, locked in. I think we were chatting also, Grapes, you had a few question marks around Shadow, right? He hasn't necessarily been the guy that is the main gear for the machine of FPX, and this has really hindered their ability to actually show up in those series. And I feel like a lot of the times it's gonna have to be around that support jungle synergy. Joy has been doing fantastically well in the games that FPX wins, but I feel like Shadow really needs to pick up that steam, especially going into this series when JJ and Meiko have finally found a groove on how to play with each other.
It really feels like for FPX, when Shadow's having a good game, when he's making impact across the map early, that's when FPX look their best. That's when they're able to take series off of teams like top esport, or sorry, like JDG and anyone's Legends. But other times when, you know, Shadow and Joy aren't on the same page and Awesome is kind of stuck on misfortune duty or something and is not put in a position to carry, that's when I think FPX really do struggle. And that's what we've seen from them, especially as of late, is they're currently on a 3-match loss streak. Remember, they were 6-8 and IG was like, what, 5-7 like a couple of series ago. Like,
Yeah.
they were very close to each other in the standings, but ever since, you know, they hit that point, they've kind of been going on opposite paths. And so we'll see if that streak continues and IG is able to take care of business here, or if we get another kind of upset and have FPX really, you know, come up to play against a team like IG has been playing really well as of late.
Absolutely. Also really exciting. We get a mid laner 1 versus 1. Care versus Rookie. Now, I want to know what you think, because I feel like for FPX, Care has been particularly like a sore spot in general for the team, and going up against Rookie, who, even if you take him out of the context of playing for IG, we put him over NIP last year or whatever it is, I feel like Rookie is one of the most dominant laning players that there are in the LPL. Like, he will dominate you in lane, and I feel like Care really has the work cut out for him in this one.
It's definitely one where I'd favor Rookie. I'm not going to lie. However, we've seen, like, you know, kind of surprises and weird matchups and stuff be played here in these 1v1s. So I guess anything can happen a little bit. But yeah, when you look at the name brand of Care versus Rookie, you definitely favor one over the other. So my eyes are to see on what Rookie can do. Again, blue side so important here in the LPL. So winning this 1v1 actually has been a very important factor in terms of how the matches do end up kind of shaping out throughout a best of 3. But yeah, I think that Rookie should be the favorite here. I would agree.
All right, let's see now. We're very close to getting into that 1 versus 1. It actually gets really exciting. We have gotten so many different like iterations also of 1v1s. That's why it's really fun to watch. We've seen Jaculov pick Jace and just straight up run it level 3, just 1 versus 1. I believe it was a Jace versus Jace matchup into Shanks, if I'm not wrong. He lost that one. Spoiler alert, it was like a couple of weeks ago. We've seen the Corki versus Corki. We've seen the Bruisers as well. But the more fun thing is that when players pick overall champions. So we're looking here for like, what, Rumbles potentially, maybe Renekton's, Yorick's, things like that to come through for Care, and Rookie would be really fun.
I don't know if I agree if it's the most fun to see people off-roll, because sometimes they just don't know how to play the champion, and then it kind of like maybe tilts me a little bit. Like, you guys don't know like what like Volibear E does, like giving you the you don't know, like you have to step in it to get the shield, or like I don't know. There's sometimes weird little interactions like that, but you know what? These are pros. They definitely could beat me in a 1v1 like playing Yuumi, so I'm gonna take their word for it here, as we are in that champ select on the Abyss. Again, winner gets side select here between Care and Rookie. You know, Rookie, a legend in his own right here, making his name on Invictus Gaming in the past, whereas Care kind of has been that, you know, staple player for Fun Plus Phoenix over the past couple of years. You wanted off-roll picks here, Trouble. It looks like we're going to get a Fiora into a Varus for Rookie. This is very strange.
Hey, actually, Asum seemed to enjoy himself much more when Care locked in that Fiora into the Varus. That's actually really exciting because you can actually repost the Chain of Corruption as well. Usually you will take Flash when you play against champions like Varus, have a lot of actually damage.
Our producer is excited.
Damage abilities to throw at you. You'll take Flash. But right here you have Repost. So potentially with Fiora you can go double Combat Summoner to play into the Varus, just so you can potentially like poke him up in the early, and then you can dodge Chain of Corruption, which means that then you can all-in.
Oh man, there's a lot of little intricacies here. You don't normally see like Fiora into, like, this is not a lane matchup you typically see. I know Varus top lane was like meta for a little bit in solo queue at times, but not necessarily always into Fiora. So I'm curious to see how this works out. Obviously the riposte is going to be very important. If Care can parry either that Chain of Corruption or like even a big empowered Q that Rookie throws out, like that's his opportunity to win. So I don't know. I don't know how many Fioras we've seen here in the 1v1s. I'd have to do a quick check to see.
I don't think we have seen any. I might be completely wrong here. However, what I do know is that Fiora is one of the hardest champions to master in general in League of Legends. Like usually bruisers that require milliseconds of attention within spells and how to proc. I forgot. Vitals, I think
Vitals,
it's called.
yes.
Vitals, there you go, and how to proc the vitals and all that. Oh, of course, this is so hilarious. This is so hilarious. This is the shy
That's
skin.
the shy skin. That's good. That's good bans. That's good bans. I love that. As I did do a little bit of quick cursory research, these could be, you know, partially incorrect. I don't think Fiora has been picked in one of these the entire season. Maybe in Split 1 or in the playoffs, but you know, a bit of a new pick, which we'd love to see. Oh, it's not going too well though for him. One more auto from Rookie. That's just the first kill. Okay.
Okay,
You know, maybe there's a reason that Fiora hasn't been picked.
Or is it very the shy-ish? I can't tell, you know? It's either like super high or super low with him.
Yep.
However, it's not the shy. That's piloting the Fiora right now. It is Care. Made a little bit of a whoopsie right there. Doesn't even get to flash away from that. And Rookie's got complete lane control. Bunch of minions ahead. He's gonna get a lot more gold, and it's gonna get a little difficult right here for Care to get back into this. I feel like he's gonna have to actually play around that level 6 in the ultimate, repost the Varus ult, or even flash that, and try to potentially all in with your ult.
This is the full of the shy experience. Oh, cannon. Where you just get completely, you know, the highs and lows potentially for the shy, and maybe be put onto Care here. So dies first, but now he's a nice wave. You know, we'll take that. Gonna be shoving into Rookie, although he's going up against a Vamp Scepter. That's not good. We did get word from Kai, our producer, that there has been no Fiora the split in any of the LPL 1v1s, which, you know, the more I think about it, the more surprised I am. I feel like Fiora, very popular champion in the LPL. Obviously, the Shy has a skin on it, and, you know, it's known for dueling. It's known as a duelist, so surprised we haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay, what is my mid laner doing the first time in Fiora here?
Yeah, I know. But this is what I mean, right? We just sometimes when they play off-roll, they don't know how to play the champion as well. And then I'm like, why don't you just push Sheeran instead if you're gonna play Fiora?
Listen, I was just memeing, okay? I was just memeing. But apparently it came true. The off-roll, I feel like Care has maybe been a little bit like off with his repose so far. Like the Q flies first, the repose comes in like a second later. Might be ping issues. You never know. Very nice repose right there. Nice.
That's what we want to talk about. Hey, Care's level 6. We could go in. Okay. Looks like he wants to get the health shrine first.
Let's go flash.
I mean, we might want to send it pretty soon here. Looks like maybe Care doesn't agree, because he's headed back to base.
All right.
I will say I've liked recently. It feels like the players in the 1v1s have been more willing to just like full flip it. You know, there's less Ring of Fires. It's more just like, I'm going to go all in on you, and I'm going to end this one way or the other. And I kind of respect that.
The Tiamat became a Sheen, so it's a little bit more catered to actually poking and playing with the Sheen procs right here for Care. Let's see how he's actually going to choose to use that, because Rookie right here with these Varus, you've got some lifesteal through that Vamp Scepter as well. You've got the double combat summoner, which I was actually expecting to come through for Care, right? But the problem right here is that because you're playing melee into range, if Rookie did have that flash available to him and you couldn't be able to stick on him as a Fiora, it would make the matchup that much more infinitely harder. Now Care has the wave in a pretty good spot. Rookie's gonna have to slightly overextend. The steel cap's coming through as well to reduce that auto damage coming through from Care. And let's see if Care with that level 7 can actually look to try and all-in Rookie right here, because you said it, like, once the Ring of Fire is out, you're not going to have a lot of chances to win that 1v1.
I don't know, Trouble. I don't know if you saw the gold underneath when they toggled it for a second, but Rookie's like 2k ahead. So it's like, and you can see it in the items too, right? It's Sheen and Longsword versus like 3 really powerful components. So I feel like Care might just have to send it at some point. He does not have as much lifesteal as Rookie does, so it is a war of attrition that he will not win underneath this tower.
So here come the problems, right? If you chip the tower enough for Rookie, and you chip Care at the same time, you're gonna have to take the double-edged sword decision right there. Do you back and lose your tower? Do you all in and lose the 1v1 anyway because you'd be pretty chipped? I don't think Care has a choice here. I think he's gonna go.
He's got to go in at some. I mean, if he backs here, I think the tower might be in danger. So we are playing with fire right now, Care. Oh, the back doesn't get canceled. Okay, he's gonna buy the steel caps. He's just gotta gun it and just try to do one fight. I feel like
okay,
that
that's
has
peak.
to be the move.
Yeah, he's peaked now. He's peaked. Still caps. 2,000 gold deficit. But he can't all in it because right here, Rookie's probably gonna come back with Blade of the Ruin King in his inventory.
Stop
He's
the face.
trying to cancel.
Oh, he
No,
flashed. Okay, they're gonna be on even footing in terms of gold at the very least. Will the arrow come through? It does. He does not riposte anything. And now Rookie could just finish him off with a couple of autos, most likely. One more should do it. Kair's gonna run into that shooter. No, he runs into the tower. He had nowhere to go except right to his doom. Rookie picks up 2 kills, and IG's gonna have side select.
That was so doomed, man. Watch what mid laner doing. First time in Fiora in a 1v1 that decides side selection.
You know, we were surprised that Fiora hadn't been selected. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he's got picked yet in the 1v1s.
You know what? It tells you a lot about the champion and its difficulty when top laners are not willing to put the time and effort to learn the champion, particularly when it's not even like very implanted in the meta as well. They don't want to put the time and effort to learn it because it's a very hard mechanically champion to master. And Kair's like, I got this. Just watch. I got this. Don't worry about it. It can't be much harder than Renekton. He's played Renekton mid. It's fine.
See the Shy? The Shy is like watching from the side, like this freaking guy picked my skin, and it's putting up this performance in the 1v1 against my team.
Disapproval.
Like, oh man, like you know, if he won with the Shy skin against Rookie, that would have kind of gone hard. I'm not gonna lie, but now that he didn't, he's gonna have to wear it, and now it means that IG will have side select here for game number 1. They pick blue side. No surprise here. It has been the most OP side here in the Fearless draft basically every time.
Yeah, actually, you know what? This could work as reverse psychology as well. You see the IG Fiora losing. You know
He's
what?
Manifesting. Yes.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay. Bear with me.
Okay.
There is a term in like ancient Greek called pro-economy. And it doesn't necessarily translate as you think it is. It just means that there's certain events that sort of you can see through, you can like foresight what's going to happen in the future. They show you through some events what's going to happen in the future. That's what Kair tried to do there. He tried to show IG who the real loser will be by having the IG Fiora lose.
He's having it, play out in his mind, like before he's like, you know, closing his eyes, thinking like, yes, I'm going to see the IG team lose. And he's, you know, maybe it costs them red side, but maybe that mental edge can help them out here. As it looks like we're getting ready here for the draft. Again, Invictus Gaming need to win this series outright in order to have any sort of chance into locking a top 4 spot here in Group Ascend, which would get them, of course, an automatic bid to the playoffs. Meanwhile, FPX are playing mostly for seeding at this point. They want to be a higher seed. That gives them potentially an easier opponent. I don't know what you think, Trouble, but I would rather not play against Ninjas in Pajamas, and that is the position that FPX could be in if they lose this series, because NIP have been an absolutely unpredictable team with Doinby at the helm. Absolutely,
and I think FPX have too. You know what? Now that I think about it, I think it would be a banger best of. So I'd love to see that. FPX wouldn't though. They want to win here. Talia gone, Nafiri gone. So we do still have things like the Rumble up and available. The Shy is gonna pick that one up for himself.
Now, what's the response gonna be here? We've seen things like Pantheon really rise in priority, even though the Talia has been banned away. Shadow has really appreciated that pick, and it is gonna get locked in. Now maybe a matchup into the Rumble. No, another pick that has not been banned away is the Nico. Once we got to that Spirit Blossom patch, it was almost a permaban on red side, but it's seen more priority, or it's been opened up more, and Jue is very, very solid on it.
Yeah, and the super fun thing is, again, the Nico really disguises the problems that things like Kai'Sa, AD carries like Kai'Sa have in lane, where super short range and usually gets super bullied by other AD carries. But now a lot of other things have risen into priority, things like Renata lanes with like Dravens and Ashe and Kalista, right? So locking it in super early right here from FPX pretty much guarantees you that you're going to be going into an Enchanter bot lane 2 versus 2 from the side of IG as well.
Yeah, I would love to see a Kai'Sa for Awesome here if the situation allows for it. I mean, they've already gone pretty hard into that dive comp, at least with that Pantheon being locked in. So we'll see if the situation allows for it here. Xin Zhao and an Annie locked in for Rookie. Another one of those champions that really has risen up in priority. I'm curious to see what Kair has against it as a response.
Yeah, I don't know if right here they want to lock in potentially the Kai'Sa just so they can get a strong 2 versus 2 down the bot lane, or if they want to respond with, whoa, actually the Sion makes so much sense right here. There's not a lot of tank killers in terms of AD carries. There's not a lot of tank killers locked in for the side of IG in general right now in the first 3. Rumble can work as one, especially if he does get ahead, and you can actually build a lot of anti-MR on the champion as well. However, AD carries that can kill Sion, very, very few currently.
Yeah, and FPX can start to tag that bot lane pool a little bit. Gala and Mako still have champions to lock in. Wonder if we see something like a Leona ban come out. That's been one of Mako's strongest champions this split. On the other side here for Invictus Gaming, they are targeting a mid laner for Care, a bot laner for Awesome. It looks like they're worried about that Akali. Assassins do pretty well into that Annie, so not surprised to see that one here.
Yeah, FPX has a pretty all-in sort of composition, but also the pieces of the puzzle that they've chosen can play very individualistic as well if they want to. So there's not really rhyme and reason on how they want to play those team fights. And IG want to make sure that their immobile carries that have been locked in so far, like the Rumble, like the Annie, potentially their AD carry as well, don't have to watch literally 4 different sides of flanks to play those team fights, and eliminating that Akali, that backline access, which potentially could come through with that Kai'Sa. And by the Xayah ban right here from FPX, this is definitely showing that FPX are going to be locking in an all-in mid and an AD carry.
Yeah, it's pretty indicative when you see the Ezreal and the Xayah bans, who are typically 2 of the safest AD carries, that they want to make sure Gala's on something that is a little bit more vulnerable and could potentially be collapsed upon just a little bit. We see Care getting the Galio targeted away from him as well. And now we'll see if they want to save the last pick here for Awesome. That would make sense given the fact that we do already see Annie locked in for Rookie. The Sylas gives Care the opportunity to steal away that Tibbers and the Equalizer. A lot of very powerful ultimates that IG already have locked in.
Yeah, that's a little bit scary. If you go for something like Kalista Renata right here for the side of IG, that's a little bit scary, because Kalista Renata work fantastically well when you're playing against sort of like all-in compositions, especially the hostile takeover from Renata is an incredible weapon. However, you can find offense with offense, Lucian Nami.
Oh, okay. So a more aggressive bot lane picked up here for Gala and Mako, something that can really try to break open the mid game specifically. Get priority around those mid lane waves, allow for neutral objectives like the third dragons, the Rift Heralds to be easily controlled by Invictus Gaming if they play things out right. See what the response is here for FPX. The Kalista would confirm a very hard all-in composition where you could throw the Nico in with that Fate's Call, and it looks like that is what the answer will be. So FPX, they have a very clear game plan. It is to run straight at Invictus Gaming and try to kill all of them by pressing their R buttons. Meanwhile, IG, a little bit more well-rounded in terms of the damage that they can provide. I think in general, they spike around 1 or 2 items. That's when they really want to get things going.
I find for FPX very clever that they left actually R5 for AD carry right here. It could be a case of we're playing Kai'Sa and we're going to all-in dive, or we're going to play Kalista and we're going to play for harder trades during the laning phase. And especially when you're playing against Lucian Nami, this sort of bot lane wants to take trades into you. As someone's way said bet, they're pretty much going for that 2 versus 2 where you're going to be taking chips off of each other's HP bars down that bot lane, and you're expecting junglers to actually play a huge role down there. We talked about Shadow, and we did put a little bit of a magnifying glass on him. We said we want to see him a little bit more active on the map, particularly in the early game. Now he does have setup in every single lane he chooses to go to.
And that's going to be big if, of course, Shadow can get his team ahead. FPX, remember, they won Game 1 of this series last time around. It was the first best of 3 played by both teams in the Group Ascend. However, IG was able to take advantage of it afterwards. And even though both teams have had their ups and downs, right now Invictus Gaming on the upswing, winning 3 series in a row, 4 series in a row. FPX on the downswing. They both want to try to get back on the win column here. FPX want to break their streak. IG want a chance at potentially locking in a spot in that top 4. And it starts with a win here. 2 former world champion organizations going at it. It's FPX's last series of Group Ascend. They're already locked into that play-in stage, but want to make sure they end on the right note, going up against a familiar foe in IG.
IG versus FPX. FPX's last series starts exactly how their split started, as we're walking straight into Game 1.
Jayo's coming out. I mean, you know, IG, very popular team, so you can hear just a little bit louder there on the cheers. It's actually FPX starting things off with a very creative level 1 to set up some vision in that bot side jungle.
Love, 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 love what FPX are doing here, actually. We talked about how the bot lane is going to be so important because they're literally going to be fist fighting from the get-go, and junglers are going to play a huge, huge impact in that early game. Right here, Shadow is going to start at the Raptors of JJ's jungle as they are actually wrapping around. They're looking for invade themselves. They have been spotted, however. If you look on the bot side, FPX have pinged the movement right there, and Shadow's going to stay all alone in the jungle. Look at the wraparound coming through. JJ's walking up, making Gala in the river.
Yeah, and Awesome and Joy going to take a little bit of poke from Gala and Mako, and we see JJ starting here on the red buff, knowing basically that Shadow's at the Raptors. I'm very curious to see how they continue to maneuver around this. It might just be Shadow picking up a free level 2, getting a little bit of a camp advantage, and then just heading back into his own jungle. And now FPX will know exactly where JJ is as well, because remember, all the wards that were placed level 1 are going to spot this Xin Zhao out.
And here's the thing, right? If you clear one side of your jungle and you get that level 3 for the Xin Zhao, you can actually walk straight towards that bot side. So there are very creative paths that you can take where you clear some top, you take one camp top, you go back bot lane, and you actually gank. But Sway and Assume right here want to make sure that they stay safe, right? They are the pushing bot lane. They want to take control of that bot lane. So they do not want that Xin Zhao to be towards the bot side of the map. So by taking the Raptors away, they eliminate the pressure of JJ being on the bot side.
Yeah, and you can see running straight towards those wolves because he doesn't want to fall too far behind, and that gives the bot lane of FPX a little bit of extra priority. We talked about, you know, Jue being the most valuable player so far on FPX in terms of the player of the game votes that he's received. Awesome has had some really big moments in the past as well. The Gala and Mako have started to step things up a little bit in their own right, and that's a good thing to see from them, as, you know, they definitely had their struggles a little bit earlier on.
Yeah, and you see how they've gone also for the electrocute down bot lane with the Lucian. Now Shadow is going to finish his side of the jungle. He's going to wrap around. Gala, pretty low in HP, dashes forward.
Yeah, she's going to take a little bit of poke, forcing the heal out of Mako. Don't know if the wave is in a good enough spot for Shadow to just run down here. Both Gala and Mako do have their flashes, so it's going to have to be a dive.
Shadow is looking. Gala and Mako have actually picked up on that. They know that Shadow could be around, but now they're not under a tower.
Yeah, Mako does get stunned up by the W of Shadow. However, the Tangle Barbs do not connect, and Gala is able to get a nice amount of poke back in onto the Pantheon. And now FPX are relatively low HP and are going to try to just close the gap here. Shadow flashes forward. They're going to chain that CC well, and Awesome's going to pick up first blood.
I mean, it was inevitable for FPX. They had to make this dive work. They had committed way too much time now down in the bot lane, but FPX now have to move on. Rookie was also moving on the map. Kara had to take a reset right there. This almost went really, really bad for FPX. Luckily, Shadow commits his flash. Sway does the same, and they end up grabbing a kill onto their Kalista, which hopefully they can snowball that bot lane.
Well, here's the question, though, Trouble. Is that worth it if you're FPX? Because look what JJ was able to do on the other side of the map. Pick up the entire red side quadrant of Shadow. So remember when Shadow got the advantage by stealing away the Raptors? Not so much anymore, as now JJ is going to be considerably ahead in terms of farm.
Yeah, I feel like when you try the dive on the first time and it doesn't work, you kind of have to reset right there. But because they had committed so much time down the bot lane, they just had to make sure they get something out of it, right? JJ had already invaded. He was already taking the Raptors while the bot lane dive was going on. So FPX has made sure that they got something back from committing their time down the bot side of the map, as we see the switcheroo coming around from the bot lane of FPX over the top side of the map.
Yeah, they're happy with the swap because they know that Sheer can withstand a little bit more pressure than the Shy on the Rumble. Shadow's still level 3, by the way, just stings 4 off the taking of that stolen away Raptor camp. You can see the difference in experience just off of that play that was made by FPX. Shadow, of course, got the kill, but now he's down a full level in experience.
Yeah, which means that JJ coming back with the Tunneler in his pocket. He gets to start the Dragon as well. The push down from the bot lane of IG does help as well. They are doing it literally right on top of Vision, but because that bot lane swapped over on the tops of the map from FPX, there is literally no one that can walk inside the river and stop them from doing it. So pretty good from IG so far. Oh, hold up.
There goes that bear.
Okay, it's just a teddy bear. You know what?
Yeah.
If not friend, why friend shaped? That's my question about bears.
Hold on. Repeat that for me one time. Sorry.
If not a friend, why friend? Shaped.
You're saying teddy bear is very huggable, very lovable.
Yeah, I'm talking about real bears as well. If they're not friends,
true.
why are they
They're
shaped
very-
like ones?
They're very fuzzy. I do,
Right?
yeah. Like, well, maybe this is a bad example, but you know, some people in like the States, they'll have like carpets made out of like the bear skin, which maybe is a little sad. But when,
See, I was talking about the live version.
but you know, there is an appeal for like the fluffiness of the fur and of the coat and everything. I agree with you. They should be. There should be, well, you know, there's pandas, which are, you know, anyone's legend. Shout out. Those guys seem like they could be my friends. They're a little.
Yeah.
Tibbers would not be my friend.
He's Annie's friend. That's what counts to her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna reel us back into the game because I took us out of it.
It was a great conversation. I mean, it's very valuable, very important conversation to have.
It's always been in my head, man. I'm like, if you're not a friend, why are you shaped like one? You know, like I want to hug you, but you're probably gonna take my head off. But why do you look so cute? Anyways, back into the game as Void Grubs are about to spawn in 45 seconds, and both bot laners are towards the top side of the map. There is a slight advantage in terms of items on the side of Assume, but no completions coming through yet from either side. Now, the most important part is that teleports are not available for the top lane, so you're not going to have Scions or Rumbles joining the fight. And with how much pressure actually IG have all over the map, you can see that they have taken full control of the top side river, and JJ can pretty much navigate as Shadow takes the third spawn of JJ's Raptors.
He just really loves the chicken on this side of the rift. Just tastes a little bit better when it's stolen away. As that's basically been the only stuff that Shadow's been able to counter jungle. You can see the Shy as well as JJ and Rookie like hunting for him. They know that he keeps stealing the Raptors away, but looks like Shadow's going to get a little creative back off, actually head back to base successfully. And now it's going to be Awesome and Joy fighting aggressively up at the top side against Galt and Mako and chunking down the Lucian to about half. You also see Care taking Rookie down low, so on the top side of things, FPX are winning out in these skirmishes, and that could give them a bit of an advantage and an opportunity to clear out some of the vision on the top side and maybe be able to get first the move on the Grubs.
Yeah, exactly as you said it right now. However, Rookie does have the stun.
Oh yeah, there comes Tibbers, already utilized, but Care's gonna come back with a stolen away Crescent Guard. JJ has to flash on out as 5 members of Fun Plus Phoenix are here to try to collect the Scrub camp.
Great reset right there from Sheer. Walks down mid lane, flashes through that wall. They used Care pretty much as bait just to make sure they can commit and take all 3 Void Grubs on the top side of the map. Now you're going to have Care reset early, go towards that bottom of the map. Not much is going to be missed right there, and Sheer's most likely going to head back as Jway and Assume pick up whatever is left underneath the tower. They're going to sacrifice a couple of creeps, top and bot lane. However, they do manage to secure that neutral zip for themselves.
The important thing is off that play, Sheer did not use teleport. That means he can go right back to base, TP back. He loses like 2 plates or so, but right now he was able to generate enough of an advantage of himself in the solo isolated lane combined with the lane swaps that he's actually not going to be too far behind, all things considered, against the Shy. So overall a win for FPX. They're able to pick up all 3 of those Grubs, and we'll see if that ends up having any impact in terms of, you know, how hard they can push onto towers as we get later on into this one.
I was about to say, I don't think any of those 2 teams can really abuse Void
It's not great.
Grubs.
Yeah.
They don't really like get in contact with towers a lot, especially when you have like super short range compositions with a lot of melee champions. It's just really difficult to come in contact with towers as Sheer and Assume. Oh wait, it's not.
we got baited.
Oh man.
It's very hard.
How many years
so
has you been in League of Legends? How many years has this champion been in League of Legends? And I'll still think there's 2 of the same champion on the Rift.
So many times it's happened to me where like when Nico used to be a mid laner, and then they would show up as like the AD carry, right, in the mid
like,
lane.
what? They swapped?
Huh? There's a Kai'Sa's going mid lane, and then I'm like, oh, it's Nico, and I feel so dumb every time, but it always happens. So maybe I'm the problem here.
Nah, don't worry. I clearly fell for it too, so next 2 of us. All good. Alright, that is 100% though. An AD carry over in the mid lane as Gala and Mako are taking control over in that mid lane. Now, the super fun thing about Lucian is that once you've got 1 to 2 items, once that rapid fire comes through, you become a huge mid lane bully. You pretty much become like the old good LeBlanc. If you guys remember how she used to work, you'd bully somebody, you'd poke them off in the mid lane, and then you'd make team fights with numbers advantage. Right here, IG are trying to shove in their lanes, try and get a little bit of control inside that river. However, FPX, again, are going to rotate Sheer over in the mid lane, and I think right now that IG see the Sion that has actually moved, they're actually going to give up on that one. As you see JJ heading towards his top section.
Yeah, another instance of FPX sacrificing a little bit of the resources that Sheer can put out in order to allow for an objective to be collected. And now we can see if the Shy can win out on this 1v2. He's already overheated. Forces the Fates call in from Awesome, and Jue is able to knock up the Shy again. The Electro Harpoon does not connect, and this should be a kill, most likely, but the Shy making a work for it here. Finally, Awesome gets the gold. That's number 2 for FPX.
Yeah, there's not a lot of items in anyone's inventory. There's this Haunting Guys for the Shy and a couple of bits for the first item for Assume right there, so they don't hurt too much. But Rumble, once he shreds your little MR that you've got in the early game, he does become very, very dangerous, and Sway had to use the Kalista ult right there to get away unscathed of this one, which they did. They grabbed the Tower Plating as well over the both side of the map, and first item completion for Assume's Kalista is going to be that Ghost Plate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good start here for us, for the Kalista here in this lane. Getting 2 kills early is generally a good sign on an early game champion like Kalista. It means you can snowball a lot easier, maybe be able to fight back a little bit here in this mid lane against Lucian Nami, which normally is so strong at this point. Gala does have that Essence Reaver, which means that, you know, with him at that spike, it does make it still hard for Care to try to contest these waves on his own, as IG have sent Rookie to the bot lane to try to fight this out 1v2 in response.
And I feel like the teamfights are going to be very, very fun once they break out in full force, once we get the 5 versus 5s. Again, if you look towards how FPX want to be playing, they've got a very all-in-ish composition where, like, Assume is going to have to try and figure out himself what his position will be in all of these fights. As you play Kalista, you don't necessarily have a front-to-back to play off of. You do have a Sion, but Sheer has to be very creative to try and break apart the fights. And for the side of IG, they actually have a lot of what I call quote-unquote disruptors in fights. The Tibers that can break apart a fight. The Zinza that can just dash in and ult and break apart a fight. So having all those nuisance elements with the Zinza ult and the Tibers coming through, FPX are going to have to find really creative ways on how to wrap around and find targets like Gala and Mako in the background.
It's a great point you bring up because, yeah, a lot of disengage tools available here for IG. And they can play fights. They can play fights very flexible if they want to. As we now see, speaking of, a little bit of a play towards the mid lane here, as JJ did show face but was spotted on a ward. We're waiting again until some of these neutral objectives do come back up. We have Rift Herald in a little bit over a minute. I don't think we see a real situation where a big fight breaks out until then.
Yeah, there's like that 4 to 5 minute limbo right here where there's not really void grabs anymore. There's only one spawn, but then Herald is not too close, and depending on when you kill the dragon, there's not going to be much action to be followed up after this. So currently, usually you'd see players want to fight with the first item completions, like especially when they're really strong, like for the Liagas, you put Thunder Sky on both junglers as well. You would want to try and potentially find a pick. However, right here it's mostly dominance over lanes to try and bleed a little bit of vision inside the jungles. As you can see over on the top right side, Shadow and Sway trying to take a little bit of control over on the top side, as Shadow is finishing out his red buff. And they're going to try to take a bit of vision in that river on the top side to potentially play for that Rift Herald coming up.
Now it actually looks like IG kind of giving up on that play towards the bot side, at least a little bit for now, as Mako and Gala hovering around bot lane to see if a Care would go for a really aggressive play. But then they go right back to mid. I assume when we see Awesome and Jue get back there, it'll be just Gala trying to get mid push, maybe issue out that culling, and then allow for his entire team to get priority around that Herald, which is just spawned.
Yeah, and everyone is speaking from IG. They really want to play for that Rift Herald. If I'm not wrong, JJ has actually engaged the Rift Herald as well. There is TP for Care down the bot lane, so you can actually get to push here and TP into the fight. Sheer is walking all the way. The Herald is getting very dangerously low.
Yeah, I mean, that's just going to actually get secured by Invictus Gaming, so FPX not in the position to respond. Remember, Shadow used his ultimate a little bit too early, looking for a play down bottom. Nice reaction by Awesome to use that Fate's Call as well as the barrier, I think, and the flash of both summoner spells on that play to avoid Tibbers going on top.
That was 3 buttons he pressed at once. That was flash, barrier, ult at the same time to save Dway as well. However, with 25 seconds, all that next dragon, Rookie's more than happy to burn that flash to take everything off of Asum. Because you don't just take the safety off that Kalista itself, you take the safety from the Nico away. Once Dway is in, then that's it.
Yeah, you know, if we can get Dway to pop a really big ulti, like those have been like the moments where I think FPX have looked the best. Like start of the season, one of the first games I've watched of Fun Plus Phoenix this year, it was a 5-man Nico ulti from Dway. I think it was back in Split 1. Or even Demacia calculated, but it was a really insane play, and I was like, okay, hold on, this FPX team, they might be cooking a little bit here. As he's kind of made a name for himself on the Nico, at least so far here in this season. It's risen more in popularity, but Dway was one of the innovators on this pick. Has been doing pretty well on it so far, as now we get 2 Tibbers in the bottom lane. And it's going to be matched here by the ulti from Shadow, but Rookie will be able to run away at least for a little bit. However, he's kind of going the wrong direction at this point, and that means he's going to get collapsed upon. Care just bursts him down. And that's another kill going for Fun Plus Phoenix in this game. The response is going to be Herald popped in the mid lane. Most likely that tier 1 turret nearing going down. The next wave should certainly seal the deal.
Man, Sheer is the bane of IG's existence. I feel like Sheer has read the map so freakishly well so far. He's always there to defend towers. He's always there to defend ganks coming through from JJ. And he's played a fantastic game of just pretty much being at the right place at the right time with Sion. You know that you can fall slightly behind to the Rumble. It's just very natural. Defending your team that successfully the entire game so far for Sheer has been great. And of course, the solo bolo coming through from Care onto Rookie on that Sylas is only an indicator of what we're gonna see once we get into these team fights, right? Sylas, one of the most potent and fun champions to watch when it comes to team fights, depending on what ultimate he picks up as well. There's actually a bunch that you can choose to take a Sylas right here that will make a huge impact on the fights.
I mean, even something like Tidal Wave for Sylas, stealing that away, like when you have all this AP scaling in your personal kit compared to something like a Nami has, I could do a lot of damage and be a really impactful ulti to steal away. The Tibbers, obviously, we just saw the effect of that. Even the Crescent Guard to get away from some of the long-range damage that Invictus Gaming can throw out like a culling from Gala. It could be pretty important. And, you know, Care, remember, we saw him not do too well in that 1v1 for side select, but he's actually been playing this game against Rookie pretty well.
Absolutely. It's really difficult to pilot the Sylas around, especially since JJ had been around that mid lane for quite a bit, actually, and Rookie made sure that he was using that T-Burst on cooldown to try and push Care behind in lane, which didn't necessarily happen very much, as you can see. Care is happily even in CS. He's got that extra kill as well, 800 gold up on his counterpart. Game pretty much dead even. We're at 30k apiece for both of these teams, and now they're looking for the next neutral objective, which is most likely going to be Atakan spawning on the top side of the map as full force IG, 4 members on the top side of the map. We've got 3 members from the side of FPX as well. No teleport from Sheer, though, to join the top side.
Oh, Rookie spotting out Shadow there, forcing him to run back underneath his tier 1 turret. And there was no attempt for a play made there by Fun Plus Phoenix. Looks like Shadow got cold feet a little bit and decided to head back on out, as they're still waiting for a full fight to erupt. A lot of focus towards that top side, though. It looks like IG want to try to take down this tier 1. They're going hard for these invades and trying to make sure that they push all of FPX away.
Yeah, a little bit more of a deep vision right here from IG, as they know again that Sheer does not have that teleport to join FPX if a fight breaks out. And I feel like this is very clever for IG, because again, Sheer has been so annoying for IG. They try to take a tower, Sheer is there. They try to get a kill, Sheer is there. Flashes over walls, defends the towers from the Heralds. He's actually been on point with his movement on the map. Talking about movement on the map, Care.
He's gonna dash in, has this Crescent Guard, but is unable to use it. He just gets crowd control locked to oblivion. Meanwhile, the Shy picks up a solo kill onto Sheer. He's going to be in the zombie form, and Shadows jumped in with that Grand Starfall, so it'll go down in a trade. But a really nice sequence of events for Invictus Gaming. They get kills on both solo laners of Fun Plus Phoenix.
Yeah, and they're doing the attack count on the top side of the map as well. So another neutral objective going their way as the FPX are trying to lick their wounds, taking a couple of hits on the mid lane tier 1 tower. And remember what we said, there's not a lot of AD carries that can take Sion down. However, Rumble doesn't need to be an AD carry because early on, with a double burn items, he can actually take that Sion down himself. So it's a case of if the Sion doesn't get ahead, it's great. If it does get ahead, then you're gonna need both your damage dealers to take him down. The Shy is absolutely ahead right now, and he takes the Sion down himself. You see the Shadow also jumping in a little bit too late. And
I wonder if maybe he got there a little earlier. If they try to stun up the Shy a little earlier, would she have been able to live? But I think overall you're not super happy about it for FPX, but at least you got one back, right? At least you took down the Shy. However, he does have the Bloodletter's Curse. That's one of those magic resist shredding items that you were talking about, and IG feels super strong on the map right now, and that means that FPX are a little bit worried actually of trying to contest this dragon that's spawning